SBC called the Sustainable Business Association for Sustainable Business, I guess, and they're like an alternative. They're like a green lobbying group or a socially responsible lobbying group, and they weigh in now. Many of us are members of that. We contribute to that, and they weigh in on every issue you can imagine. So they are lobbying in Washington. I think their advocacy is very important. So, you know, it's both. It's both. I mean, policy and practice are going to be intertwined in some way that's not always that clear. I think practice probably drives policy more than policy drives change. I think it's the rise of businesses like us. It's the rise of consumer awareness. You know, you take last year that we passed the first bill to regulate chemicals in about 40 years, and the chemical industry has I think there are about 10,000 chemicals that are in practice that are in use in our country, and about 200 are regulated. All the rest are innocent unless they're guilty. And so then you look at all the rates of cancer in our country. Come on, there's a huge connection between rates of cancer and all the unregulated chemicals. And yet, chemical companies are not conscious capitalists. They fight furiously to not have that kind of regulation. You look at the opioid thing. You know, the bill that was passed just a year ago that kind of obscured information on opioid trade so that it could not track what was happening in the opioid world. I mean, where did these bills come from? And so I think what's slowly happening is people are waking up to those kinds of abuses, and they're arguing for change. So the two go hand in hand, but I think it's the people that demand the change more than it is the folks lecturing about it in Washington. It's a complicated question. I'm not sure I did that justice. But yes.
Oh, could you talk a little bit about the actual business of making loans? You know, what are some typical borrowers? What's it like making the decision about whether to grant a loan to the borrower, and taking on too much risk versus not taking on enough risk?
Right. So big picture is we're in the risk management business, right? So we take in deposits, we make loans, and the interest rate on the loans has to be greater than the cost of funds, right? The deposit rate, plus all our operating expenses, plus all the loan losses we might take. So at the end of the day, before I get into the details, what do you think the margin is at a bank? If you look at all the income minus all the expense, what do you think the margin is at a bank? Any idea? Any wild ideas? What do you think?
Somebody guess.
It's 1%. 1% is considered to be a good margin. And then what happens is banks get more leverage than the average company. So the return on equity, meaning return on investment in a bank, might be 10%. Which, by the way, by Wall Street standards is nothing. But that's kind of the banking industry. So banks have to be right 99.5% of the time when they make a loan. Banks are not investors. People ask me all the time, what do you invest in? And I always say, we don't invest in anything. We lend. And so a lending decision means that we're lending to an entity that has a business with viable margins and that can repay. We're a cash flow lender, meaning we get repaid by a company's cash flow. We don't want assets that we can foreclose on. What good does that do us? What good does it do the company? So there are hard money lenders that just want to take your assets, but we want businesses that are going to stay in business. So we are not the place you come for a startup. Startups need capital that they're going to get from friends and family, that they're going to get from these small business development corps that exist, or community development financial institutions that exist. And when they get to a point, and we work with a lot of small companies, when they get to the point where the margins work, meaning that we know you can pay this much and charge this much, then that margin, that difference, will generally cover your expenses, even though you're growing rapidly. That's when they can borrow from the bank. So the decision is always going to be about, there's sort of the 4 C's of credit, but the first thing is character. Who are we lending to? Are these good people? And if we don't think they're good people, we're not going to go any further than that. And the second thing is going to be cash flow, because cash flow is what pays back loans. So that means the business works in principle. And then there are other things like collateral and conditions, but it's really about character and cash flow that make us make decisions. Now, what we do differently in our bank, if we say no to somebody, we don't just send them an email saying, sorry, no. We want to talk to them and say, look, this how we looked at your company. This is what we see. This is why it didn't work for us. Here's an alternative financial place you might be able to go. And if you were to get to this kind of point, we would be a client that we could work with. That's very rare in banking to have that kind of feedback, but that's what we try to do. Is that helping?
Yeah, it was my question.
Yeah, it was your question, yeah.
And then what are a couple of examples
Oh, so,
different types of borrowers?
yeah, so in the organic food world, you all know Cowgirl cheese? Some people, yes, no? Yeah, I see heads nodding. So that's a client of ours, that's up in Marin County. Strauss Creamery, that's in all the stores around here. That's one of our clients. Hog Island Oysters, if you know about oysters. We used to have a Blue Bottle's now been bought. Blue Bottle Coffee was one of our coffees. Equator Coffee is one of our clients. So we have a lot of organic food clients. A Rebel, which is a drink. We have quinoa, we have chocolate, coffee, energy bars, juices, a lot of things that are fighting for shelf space in Whole Foods and elsewhere. Then on the energy side, we will finance buildings that want buildings that want to do a complete retrofit. So you take a hospital and maybe it takes $10 million to retrofit that hospital so that it's much more energy efficient. They'll get 30% tax credit, and then the balance will be a loan. So we'll go in and do something like that. That would be another kind of example. We don't do consumer loans on homes, for instance, but we will lend to people who do consumer loans on loans. We're not a consumer bank, so we're not set up to do lots of underwriting for consumers, but we will lend to those people that make consumer home loans instead of doing it directly. Those are a few
And
examples.
what about to
Nonprofits.
a lot of nonprofits?
Yeah. So we have a couple hundred nonprofits at least that work with us. And most nonprofits can't borrow because they are nonprofits and they are constantly on a fundraising cycle. So, but there are some that do borrow. So for example, there's a nonprofit in San Francisco called New Door, which takes youth off the street and helps them get a job, have a savings account, finish school and whatnot. They're a borrowing nonprofit. There are a handful of others that are, but most of them most of them we work with from a management perspective. We offer seminars, or let's help you with your financial management, or let's talk about personnel policies or whatnot, rather than lending to them. Most of those are not borrowing. Yes?
How do you encourage a variety of communities and income levels to lend?
Yeah, so that's a great question. When we look at our metrics, how we measure ourselves, we are looking at how many loans go to underserved communities. We're looking at how many are women-led businesses, and how do we increase our penetration in that area. And the same thing goes, for that matter, for our employee mix. And not only employee mix, but then we had an interesting discussion in the last few months about diversity and inclusion. And we have a number of employees that were asking about career paths. And so I somewhat naively said, well, we have this whole process and we prefer internal candidates, and we have a job opening, we publish here's the job and here are the requirements. And folks said, well, yeah, that's great, but we don't have the requirements. Maybe we haven't finished college. Maybe we haven't gotten the education we need. So if you're really going to encourage us, you're going to have to help us with career planning that gets us the outside education that we need. So we're now in the process of looking at certain career pathing and seeing what we can do to help people get the education they need. So it's on our, very much part of who we are. Yeah.
If somebody here wants to move their account to New Resource Bank, is it a viable option for them?
Well,
How would they do their banking?
Yeah, so yes and no.
You can't
Yeah.
serve everybody.
So yes and no. I'd say the no part is we're not a consumer bank. We don't encourage consumers. We have thousands of consumers, but we actually aren't built for consumers. We aren't giving them credit cards. We aren't giving them overdraft lines. We're not trying to sell them into mortgages and home loans and all that other stuff. And you get free checking at all the big banks because they want to cross-sell you and they want you to overdraft, and that's why they give you free checking. So we're not in that whole business, but be that as it may, we still have thousands of consumers that want to know where their money is spent the night. You can do everything online. Online works great. We use ATMs. So it does work. But usually I say to people, any means. Go to local banks right here in the Bay Area or wherever you live, because you know that they're taking their money and they're lending it back into your community. Yes, you can come to Louis or something, but I always put the caveat on it that, now, 2 years from now, we should have a full consumer bank. We should have an online bank that you can open accounts online and do everything and be well served, but that's probably 2 years out.